Joining us now, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, good morning again. You guys have been unequivocal in your condemnation of this horror. You can't believe it when you hear the details and you read the details. A beautiful 6-year-old boy murdered for the crime of being Muslim. What more can you say about it this morning?
Look, it's a terrible, terrible tragedy, Willie, to see a mother and her child stabbed in their home by some lunatic because they're Muslim. We called it out immediately because we should have no place for that in society. We got reports last night in Belgium that 2 Swedish men were shot and killed by an individual who identified himself as a, quote, fighter for Allah and said it was a revenge attack. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing our world unravel because of this Hamas massacre and these 1,400 innocent people who were killed. So we're really worried. You just alluded to the numbers that we're tracking. The FBI released their hate crime data yesterday. Unsurprisingly, in the years since they've been tracking it, law enforcement, last year was the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents they've ever seen. Literally, it was a 37% increase over the prior year. And Jews, despite the fact that we're just 2% of the population, are more than half of all religiously motivated hate crimes, 10% of all hate crimes. I mean, let's just acknowledge that we are really, I think, on edge. And that's a reason why everyone is so concerned.
Jonathan, let me ask you, have you been surprised at how many otherwise thoughtful college presidents in this country seemingly cannot understand or do not know the true meaning of the word terrorist and terrorism?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, Mike. It's interesting. These college presidents with their fancy PhDs get an F in recognizing evil. If you rape women, that isn't resistance, okay? If you decapitate babies, that isn't decolonization. And anyone who thinks that this was justified literally gets an F in life. But you know what, Mike? It's not just the presidents. In the last 24, 48 hours, we've had college professors from places like Cornell and Columbia and CUNY lauding the attacks, applauding the terrorists, extolling the virtues of, quote, resistance. Look, there's a reckoning that needs to happen at our universities, a moral reckoning. It's long overdue. I'm glad it's now underway.
Well, the University of Pennsylvania is losing a major donor over claims of anti-Semitism. Former U.S. Ambassador and UPenn alumnus Jon Huntsman announced that his family is cutting off funding to the Ivy League school. Huntsman and his family have donated tens of millions of dollars to the school over the last few decades. On Sunday, the school newspaper, the Daily Pennsylvanian, printed a letter from Huntsman to the university president, Liz McGill, announcing the end of donations from the Huntsman Foundation. The letter from Huntsman reads in part, quote, the university's silence in the face of reprehensible and historic Hamas evil against the people of Israel, when the only response should be outright condemnation, is a new low. Silence is anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is hate. On Friday, a trustee resigned from UPenn's Board of Trustees, also over concerns of anti-Semitism. Last month, UPenn faced backlash over a festival featuring Palestinian writers with a history of anti-Semitic statements. The university president released a statement on Sunday condemning the Hamas attacks and addressing the situation with the festival back in September. Jonathan Greenblatt, it might be a little too late. It seems like she's backtracking, but what do you make of the Huntsman donations, and is this perhaps the way to communicate with universities that are slow on the uptake?
Mika, I'm really glad you brought this up. And, you know, I've been on your show many times, and at the ADL, we fight all forms of hate. That's our focus. And what's important about Jon Huntsman, you know, the former ambassador to China, who comes from a prominent Mormon family, or Ken Griffey, Ken Griffin, from Citadel, who's a big donor at Harvard, who's also not Jewish, saying they're pulling back their donations because hate is hate. And silence in the face of hate is unexcusable. These Hamas terrorists, their barbaric atrocities weren't just committed against Israelis or Jews. Israeli Arabs were murdered. People from Germany, the UK, Thailand, the Philippines, and of course, America, Mika. Dozens and dozens of Americans were killed. Reportedly, upwards of 20 Americans are being kidnapped, bound and gagged, and held in tunnels below Gaza. Like, again, to your point, let's acknowledge that these presidents may finally be realizing that the university is just not students sitting in desks. A university is a community. Donors are a part of it. Alumni are a part of it. There are other stakeholders who are part of it, and they need to be listening to all of them to create a beloved community on their campuses, a community where Jewish life isn't valued, a community where the leadership, equivocates in the face of evil. That isn't leadership, Mika. That's something far, far less.
So, Jonathan, President Biden heads to Israel this evening. You yourself are about to make your own trip there. Tell us what you hope to hear from him, but also what you'll be doing.
Yeah, so I'm here in D.C. today. American Jewish leaders from around the country are all convening together with leaders of the administration, the leadership in Congress, for a sort of rally, if you will, to show our ironclad, unwavering support of the state of Israel and the Israeli people. And then about 50 of us are taking an emergency solidarity mission to Israel. We're doing that, in parallel to and probably converge with the president. And I think, again, the fact that he's going is a sign, Jonathan, about the value and importance that America places on the American-Israeli relationship. When we're there, we'll be meeting with not just the political leadership of Israel, the American families of victims, American families of hostages who are there, leadership of the IDF, and really trying to understand how a hate group, how a terror organization like Hamas could cause such carnage, and how hopefully Israel, the situation in Gaza is very, very bad. My heart breaks for the innocent Palestinians, like my heart breaks for all of the Israeli families who lost loved ones, who've been displaced and dislocated. Let's hope that America and Israel together can figure out how to eradicate the evil of Hamas once and for all.
CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you very much for being on. We'll be watching your trip. And up